Okay, so this is a tutorial video on how to complete the blade change on an Ideal 5560 guillotine. Also applies to an EBA 5560 and an EBA 551. The blade change process across the three models is identical. So before we start, you just need to make sure you've got the correct tools to complete the process. So you'll need the blade change cradle. You'll also need the 8mm Allen key, the 4mm Allen key, and the steel tube that comes with the machine. These are normally located on the back in the tool rack or in a little box that comes with the machine when they're new. For ease, I do recommend that you invest in an 8mm T-bar and a 4mm T-bar. Just makes your life a little bit easier when you're doing the blade change regularly, instead of using the standard tools that come with the machine. It's a little bit easier with the T-bars. So the first thing we need to do is access the blade bolt, which is currently hidden behind the frame on this side of the machine. So to do that, we need to bring the blade down and leave it at the bottom position in order to remove that blade bolt and begin the process. So to do this, we just push this plunger in here. It goes all the way in, it won't go in any further. We then bring the blade down, all the way down, we let go, and now the blade stays at the bottom position. So we need to remove this blade bolt here. So before we do that, I'm going to bring the camera in a bit closer so you can see exactly what I'm doing with the machine from this process onwards, with more detail. Okay, so hopefully you can all see the blade bolts and the blade is still down. It's all nice and clear for you now with the camera being in a bit closer. So using the T-bars as opposed to standard tools, I'm going to remove the end blade bolts from the machine. So these do normally get quite tight, so you may need a bit of force on them. So just need to crank them off anti-clockwise and remove the blade bolt completely and put it out of the way to one side of the machine. You can now bring the blade back up again by pulling the plunger underneath, back out. The blade will return to the top. It's spring return, so it'll just return under its own pressure. Now what we need to do is remove this blade bolt and this blade bolt, and that's where the cradle sits in. So same process again, we literally just get our T-bar, we can use the tube as well, make it easier. Crack that one off, crack that one off, remove the bolt, remove the bolt, get our blade change cradle, slide it in to the left, push it up until it lines up to the bolt and screw it all the way in. Once the blade bolt is fully tight, it'll hold the blade in place and you won't need any blade bolts at all. So now we can remove the two remaining blade bolts. So that one and that one. Once we've got the two blade bolts out, we can lift the blade itself out of the machine. So we just do that by backing off the two handles we've just tightened on, and the blade will drop down to the bottom. You can then remove it by bringing it out from the right, out to the left, and we've now got the blade out of the machine. Okay, so once you've got the blade out of the machine, you'll need to remove the cutting stick. Underneath there's a steel shim which spaces the cutting stick up so that you can adjust the depth of the cut, as well as the adjuster on the right hand side. So to get the cutting stick out, we've got the two screws in the front here which lock it into position. So at the moment it's locked. If we put a 4mm Allen key into here, one full rotation, maybe 1.5 full rotations is enough, just to loosen the cut stick so we can then easily lift it out. And underneath there is the steel shim. Take the shim out, rotate the cutting stick around to a fresh side, place the cutting stick back in, push it over to its stop on the right hand side, tighten the screws back up again, like so. That locks the cutting stick in place. Now we're ready to refit the blade again. Okay, installing the blade is the exact reverse process of the removal. First thing you need to do is get your freshly sharpened or new blade into the blade change cradle and bring it over to the machine. Just one thing to note, on a 5560 blade the holes are double drilled, so if you're using a new blade, always use the lower holes. If you're using a much shorter blade, the blade that came off is also a lot shorter and the blade of the same sort of age, use the top holes. But for safety, we'd always recommend you use the lower ones, just avoids any damage. You can always do an adjustment later. Okay, so we bring the blade into the machine in the left, over to the right, and then offer it up into the slots. It goes all the way to the home position. Hold it with our hand, lock it in position. 8mm Allen key. Into the blade, the bolt goes. Just nip it up, doesn't need to be very tight at this stage, just nipped up is fine. Nip that one up too. Remove the cradle. Okay, with the cradle removed, you can replace the blade bolts where the cradle was. So the one on this side can go all the way in, nice and tight. The one on this side can also go in, but don't tighten it up, just leave it so it's loose in the machine. The reason for that is that that blade bolt goes behind the frame, but we need to do an adjustment, which if it's tight wouldn't allow us to do it. Okay, so now we just push the plunger in again. We bring the blade down to the lower position. We can see the blade is not reaching the cutting stick. So what we need to do is undo this one, undo this bolt, undo this bolt, blade drops down. That's why that blade bolt, which is now hidden, is not tight. At this stage we can put this bolt back in and just give the blade a bit of a helping hand just to sit in the right position. Tighten each blade bolt up. Now pull the plunger back out, blade retracts to the top. Just whilst remember, we'll tighten the blade bolt up on the right hand side. Again, just nip it up. Now what we need to do is replace the shim back underneath the cutting stick. So 4mm Allen key, undo the clamp bolts on the front of the machine that release the cutting stick. Take the cutting stick out of the machine, replace the shim all the way across to the right hand side. Make sure you've got a fresh side on the cutting stick. Slide the cutting stick in, make sure it sits in the fully down position. 4mm Allen key, tighten that back up again. Both sides. Now we're ready to do a test cut. So just get some A4 sheets, place them in the machine, do a cut. Machine's cutting. We're now done a blade change, it's complete. Last thing we need to do is just nip all the blade bolts up using the bar so they're all nice and tight. Job's complete. If you did need to adjust the blade down a little bit further, there is an adjuster on all the Ideal 5560 models on the right hand side here. It's just a 6mm grub screw. You put the Allen key into that, you've got anti-clockwise and clockwise movement. So just to show you that, you slide it in the side, got anti-clockwise and clockwise. So clockwise is more cutting, anti-clockwise is less cutting. That just adjusts how far the blade comes down. So a quarter turn, retest your cut, and away you go.